You know it's this. Take a perk and a talk of that shit. Money swallowing like sis. Did it perfect in the kid. Got a billion who sang on my head. Look up better. Put on the road I just spent. I know we got $1 million. The devil that shit ain't not cheaper again.
Hello and welcome back, fellow anime lovers, to MangaMuse. I am delighted to have you join us once again in the world of fanfiction and fantasy. This is the first part of What If Deku Meets Chaotic. Special note, this fanfic is written and a masterpiece of HanBaron on FANFICTIONnet. Do check and support the author too. Now smash the like, share and subscribe button for more. Also press the bell icon so that you never miss such great parts. Thanks for the introduction. Now let's dive into the world. Life had been rough for Izuku for the last 10 years. Ever since being diagnosed quirkless, he'd felt more and more alone. And more hurt at school and elsewhere. But something was about to happen to him. Something that would change his life forever. One day when running from bullies, Izuku ducked into an old electronics store. With the old shopkeeper letting him hide behind the counter for a time. "I think you're okay, kid," the old man said before setting down his book. He saw how roughed up Izuku looked and said he could relax here for a bit longer. Izuku thanked the man before looking around the shop. In one of the bins, he saw some older-looking tablets and handheld devices. But one stuck out to him. It was relatively simple. A 4-way D-pad at the bottom, a normal black screen, a blue border around it, and a strange-looking light at the top. It seemed to light up a little when he pushed some of the buttons, but not much else. "Hey mister. What with this thing?" Izuku asked before holding it up to the old man. He looked at it and said he didn't know. "Can't get it to work at all. I've taken it apart a few times, but I can't get it to do anything." Izuku mentioned it lit up a bit when he touched it, which surprised the old man. And the surprise grew when Izuku showed him what he meant. He had Izuku bring it up and they spent a bit of time fixing it. Until it eventually reacted to Izuku pushing some buttons. But only Izuku. When it finally started working, it showed a strange-looking creature on the front. It appeared to a green-skinned man with black spiky hair and red tunic. And he seemed to be causing an eruption around him. Before Izuku could comment on that, a set of letters and numbers appeared across the screen. That picture was one thing, but this is different. "Maybe it's an old code," the old man said while looking at it with Izuku. The pair shrugged before Izuku noticed the time. He was going to return the tablet, but the old man said he could keep it. "It seems to work when you hold it. You'll probably figure what's going on with it." As Izuku was walking home, he was still playing around on the device to figure out what was going on with it. He eventually got some sort of typing function to work and it asked for a screen name. He raised his eyebrow at that but shrugged and put in Greenmite. And when that set of numbers and letters appeared again, he hit the center button to as he guessed activate it. But nothing happened. Or so he thought. Right as he pushed the button on the tablet another version of himself was falling through a tunnel of numbers and light. And when he landed, Izuku was standing in a central area of a massive building. With dozens of other people all around him and robots floating through. "What the heck is going on?" Izuku shouts before a robot appears and tells Izuku, or rather Greenmite, to calm down. "You first-timers are always so loud. Anyway. Welcome to Chaotic," the robot says with a deadpan voice. While Izuku is still freaking out, a few new people come up to talk to him. "You okay, kid? I know it's your first day here, but that seemed a little much." The one talking to him was a young man, a bit older than Izuku, with black hair and blue eyes. He had a tablet with an identical color scheme to Izuku's, so the green-haired teen started rambling off question after question to him. "Whoa. Whoa there. How about we slow down? My name's Tom. Tom Majors. Screen name Major Tom. What's your name?" Tom said after putting a hand on Izuku's shoulder. The younger teen gulped before giving his name. "Huh, Japanese then. So how long have you been playing chaotic? What's chaotic? Izuku asked with a confused look on his face. Tom looked at Izuku funny before asking if he knew the names of any of the creatures or attacks. Or even what the dromes were. When he was given a negative, the older teen hummed. Hang on a second. I'm gonna make a call. Tom said before stepping to the side and calling Codemaster Krellin. The Codemaster was surprised at the call and asked what the emergency could be. Yeah, we've got a strange kid here who's never played chaotic. I'm not sure how. But he's still registered as a player, so I was thinking on at least teaching him the basics. Just a half hour. Enough to show him how to set up his deck. Krellin hummed before calling a few other Codemasters. Most of them agreed that this unusual situation called for a different approach. We'll grant a half-hour reprieve. His initial opponent will be told some of what was happening. Teach him quickly, Major Tom. Krellin said with a nod to the player. Izuku was still unsure of everything going on, but Tom tried to put him at ease and said he'd teach the boy what he needed to do. This way. A few of my friends are over by trade tables. We'll show you how the battles work. Tom says before signaling to follow him. The green teen gulps before following Tom to the trade areas. And he saw a big teen with brown hair and a green and yellow shirt, a red bespectacled redhead with a tan vest, and a blonde girl with red pants and a black t-shirt over a white long-sleeved shirt. Whoa, Tommy. What's up, bro? The big guy says with a wave. Tom waves back before addressing the group. Hey Peyton. Kaz, Sarah. I've got someone here who, he needs a bit of help. Tom says before gesturing to Izuku. Who ducks a bit before slightly waving to them. Tom places a hand on Izuku's shoulder before saying he'd be fine. Let's get you started on how to set up your team. Tom says before directing Izuku to place his scanner in the table. Kaz has an incredulous look on his face before asking, how can a player not know how to set up his battle team? Izuku looks down a bit before saying he'd never played chaotic before. I've never heard of this game. I just found this tablet when I was hiding from some bullies who were chasing me because I'm quirkless. Izuku says with some self-depreciation. Only to realize he just admitted these people that he was quirkless and started to panic. I'm really confused. That or I don't understand the term you're using. What does quirkless mean? Sarah asked. The others had a similar look of confusion directed his way. Izuku looked at them funny before asking if they had quirks. Well, I mean, we all have little things that may make us odd. Like me in acting out some actions of the creatures, but nothing like that. Peyton says with a shrug. Izuku is still confused before saying quirks were powers. Like turning your hands into stone or breathing fire like my dad. All of the older teens were surprised and more confused by what he was talking about. A few, I think centuries back, humans started changing and gaining crazy powers. Over time they became known as quirks and now roughly 80% of the population have them. Izuku explains before Kaz and Peyton comment that it sounds like a comic book. And let me guess, despite all of that, you were born without one. And everyone feels like you're beneath them now because you don't have a power. Tom says with an angry look. Sarah has a similar look, especially at seeing how down Izuku looked. Giving him a hug when the boy nods and acknowledges it as accurate. The other two look mad at this as well before saying they didn't care about that since they didn't have powers either and he could hang with them anytime. But for now, little bro, we need to get you ready for your first match. Let's see what you got. Peyton says before pulling up a few of Izuku's cards on his scanner. They teach Izuku about the creatures of the game. Izuku's main set with his scanner being the Overworlders. Overworlders specialize in teamwork and healing each other. A lot of them get stronger if you have more of them on your side. But since your first match is a one-on-one, you'll need something strong. Whoa! You've got a maxer as well? He's my favorite. Tom says before coming to the image Izuku first saw when he powered up the scanner. Peyton whistles when he sees the creature and notes it has some impressive stats. Kaz and Sarah then note Izuku has a few good battle gear cards as well. Depending on the opponent, you'd be better using a boosting gear like a Vlarik Shard or Torweg if you use a wind specialist. Sarah notes while Kaz advises using a Lickalizer or Cyclones, to give his creature water and wind attacks. Okay. Music is the last piece. And since you're pretty new, you'd be better using a music that could turn the match around for you. Tom says before pointing out Fortissimo. Explaining that a creature could only cast a music if they had a magician. Usually one magician per music, but be careful about counter musics or what type you could use. Peyton though advises on a healing music. Like Ember or Geo Flourish. Just in case he gets in a bad spot. Izuku then asked how many music could be had at once. It's normally one per creature. Same with battle gear. The only thing that players have multiple of is locations. 10 per player. Peyton explains before pointing a few locations out. They note that he didn't have to worry about the attack cards during his match due to his creatures. What do you mean? Izuku asked while looking over a few attacks. Noting that they seemed similar to ultimate moves of pro heroes. You'll see. One other thing, try to relax when in the Drome. Don't freak out too much when you get started. Kaz says with a smile directed Izuku's way. Izuku's stomach rumbled a bit and Peyton chuckled before passing the boy a burger he'd ordered from the robots. Okay. You're all set up. At least as far as understanding the battle itself. What happens in the Drome though that'll be up to you. Tom says before walking Izuku to the Krellin Drome. The nervous green-haired teen nods before thanking the 4 older teens. Here goes nothing I guess. Izuku says as the Drome doors open up. Inside is a young man with brown hair about the same age as Tom and the others. So, you're the newbie huh? Oh, and you're an overworld player. Nice. This'll be a good match, the boy says before setting his scanner on the terminal. Izuku sets his own scanner down and starts to build his team on the holographic screen. Izuku, hey. Just a heads up. Slicknick's favorite creature is Ulfhedin. He's a serious powerhouse creature and Nick is skilled with him. But if you play smart, you can handle him. Tom and Sarah say over the scanner as Izuku scrolls through his creatures. Izuku eventually chooses to go with Maxer as the creature's stature reminded him of All Might. And I guess it fits given my name is Green Might. While Izuku is thinking this, the Drome Master announces for them to lock their decks. When the battle screen was shown, the AI spoke up again. As this is his first match, Green Might will attack first. Spin the location randomizer. Izuku spins and gets Underworld City for the battlefield. Maxer attacks Ulfhedin. Izuku says nervously before touching the screen. Only to be surprised when spirals of blue and white surround him and he turns into the very creature he chose. He freaks out a bit before Nick tells him to calm down. I won't go easy on you just because you're a noob. Let's get chaotic. A flash of light enveloped the two fighters and Izuku found himself in Underworld City. Okay. This is crazy. Am I really Maxer? Izuku thought aloud while looking down at his hands. He took a few breaths before trying something. Flame Orb. Izuku called out and a fireball appeared in his hand. He threw it and then tried firing it. Enjoying the feeling of being able to fire attacks. But he gets blasted from behind by a power pulse. I get that you don't know what you're doing, but it's a bad idea to fire blasts around. After all, it gives your opponent an idea where you are. Iron Ball. Nick calls out before firing a barrage from his eyes. Izuku snapped out of it and quickly rolled out of the way. Let's try this. Izuku thinks before punching the ground to unleash a rock wave. Ulfhedin took a hit before blasting the rocks away with a mirthquake. But Izuku was nowhere to be found. The tiger-like entity looked around to find the boy. Who had slipped away to think on what he should do next. I've got plenty of energy. But I need to hit him really hard. So I'll have to make the most of Maxer's power and disciplines. Izuku thought before climbing and leaping atop a few buildings. He found Ulfhedin from the rooftops and unleashed an ember swarm to blast his opponent. His opponent dodged out of the way and pulled out his Destructizuka to unleash some fire attacks of his own. But he was surprised by Izuku's ring of Niren that soaked up the fire attacks. Have a power pulse right back. Izuku shouted before firing said blast to knock his opponent down. He leapt from the rooftop and fired off a lavalanche at his opponent. Ulfhedin dodged most of the attack, but he did get hit by the blast back from the molten rock around him. The tiger-like creature snarled before firing a heat rage attack from his eyes. Izuku smiled before running at his opponent before sliding under the fiery gaze and unleashing a pebble storm into Ulfhedin's stomach. He punched his opponent a few times before his enemy lashed out at the humanoid creature. But Izuku caught the arm of the beast before throwing his opponent over his shoulder. Vine snare. Izuku called out before binding Nick to the ground. You think this will hold me? Nick shouted before starting to tear out of the vines. Izuku then used Granite Ball to do some more damage. Though it also helped to free his opponent. But that was some of what Izuku was hoping Ulfhedin would think. After pulling a few vines of Nick thanks his opponent until he noted he was standing on some hot coals and other flames. Causing more pain and draining his energy. Thought you wouldn't look down. So I let out some flaming coals and a bit of lava to set a trap. Not bad kid. But it isn't enough. Ecstatic fanfare. Nick called out before using his music to empower his creature. Izuku panicked a bit before thinking, I'll have to try mine as well. After the music finishes, Izuku unleashed a lavalanche again. With his opponent using the same attack, but with more power. Even with the defense of the Ring of Niren, Izuku wouldn't last. Now or never. Izuku thinks before calling out, Song of the Dyad. Strike Ulfhedin. The music plays and his opponent gets blasted back and his energy drops to the last bits. Enough for Izuku to finish the fight with a sudden flare. Reducing Ulfhedin to a mass of codes and numbers. Back in the Drome. Izuku was still in Maxer form and Nick was human again. Nice job kid. You beat me fair and square. Nick says with a smile. Izuku's smile grows bigger, and he shouts in happiness as he turns back into himself. Nick shakes his hand and the two head out of the Drome. With Tom and his friends congratulating Izuku on his first big win in the Dromes. Great job. Not to mention good planning on wearing Ulfhedin down. Kaz says with a pat to Izuku's shoulder. The others say much the same before heading back to the port court with Izuku. There they talk about few other things before Izuku has a moment before panicking about his parents in his world. Don't worry. You're still probably back home. And don't question it. We don't really know how it works either. Kaz says with a chuckle. They then point out the button at the top of his scanner and say he just had to push that to return home. And all of your memories while here will get transferred. Hopefully the other you will pick up on it. Tom commented while thinking about his first time coming to Chaotic. Izuku thinks about it and wondering if he could stay in the world of Chaotic. It's nicer here. I don't really have any friends back home since I was diagnosed quirkless. It's just me and my mom since dad is always away. Izuku says while looking down sadly. All of the older teens looks at him with some sadness. Tom puts a gentle hand on his shoulder before saying, it may be hard, but that's also a reason to go back. You can give your other self some small amount of happiness. And then you both can share in the experiences here and there to grow stronger than those who put you down. Izuku still looks uneasy, but he can see Tom's point. He takes a deep breath before thanking all of the older teens and pushing the top button of his scanner. Back in his origin world, the scanner starts beeping at Izuku while he's doing his homework. He looks at the device funny before pushing the blinking button. When he does, he gets a rush of the strange new world he had somewhat stepped into. The new friends he met, his first battle in the Dromes, and the promise of future adventures in the world of chaotic. Thinking about it all and the new possible friends he had and could meet brought a few tears to Izuku's eyes. And he hugged the device to his chest before thanking whatever entity brought it to him and helped him to see a world beyond what he ever believed possible. After Izuku's first match, he got into the swing of battling against other players and how the systems to operate with. He personally really liked the beta Drome since it gave him a chance to get a feel for some of the vehicle battle gears he had. But after a few matches, Tom and the others decided it was time for Izuku to learn about the other side to chaotic. It's time you went on a scan quest. And to do that, we need to show you how to transport your code to Paran. Izuku was a bit wide-eyed and asked if that was really possible. Sure, little dude. We use our scanners to go to the locations we have stored in it. And when we get there, we can scan locations, battle gear, creatures, and music. Peyton said with a salute of his food. But aren't some of these regions dangerous? Like the lava pond. It's not exactly a place I'd think would be safe to go to. Izuku questioned with a tilt of his head. Sarah acknowledges that was correct and that the locations were only part of the danger. A lot of creatures are uneasy about humans. Or in the case of the Danians, they're such security nuts they arrest anyone. Tom mentions that he wasn't thinking on having Izuku explore the most extreme regions first. You've got a Kiru City scan, a Riverlands scan, and the Forest of Life. I was thinking we'd explore those regions of the overworld first. Kaz then mentioned he'd like to show Izuku some places in the Underworld as well. Your first battle was in Underworld City, but I thought we could go to Iron Pillar as well as Everrain. Those are a good pair of locations to boost your deck a bit. Especially Iron Pillar. Kaz says before mentioning that his creature friend Hearing could get them to some good creatures and gear. Sarah and Peyton then say they'd show Izuku to their favorite tribe areas next. While Mount Pillar isn't what I'd call a tourist destination, my friend Wama can help you get some scans to boost your deck from the Danian side. And my buddies in the Mipedian oasis. Wait till you see what the Mipedians can do. Peyton says with an excited smile on his face. Izuku still has an uneasy look on his face, but he agrees. Tom and Kaz offer to go first and show Izuku around the locations. They set their base destinations and SCRT Izuku to the transport center. Okay. We'll head to Kiru City first. I know quite a few creatures around there so we can check out a lot of things. Tom says as Izuku brings up his scan of Kiru City. When he tells the two older teens, he's ready, they push the confirm commands on their scanners and transport. Izuku gulps before closing his eyes and doing the same. And when he opens them, he is shocked by the crazy location he just stepped into. Whoa! Izuku says quietly as creatures mull about in the bizarre area of the city. He keeps looking around in amazement until he bumps into someone. Izuku falls and his scanner is knocked away. As he's panicking a bit, the one who bumped into him checks on him. Another chaotic player. Are you okay, young man? The one asking was a pink-skinned woman with silver-blue hair and wearing golden armor. She had hooves for feet and was about double Izuku's height. Izuku was a little surprised by her checking on him. But he took her hand as she helped him up. I'm okay. But I dropped my scanner around here somewhere. Izuku says while looking around in a hurry. The woman hummed before jumping up a bit to get a better view of the area. It's just over there. I'll show you the way. Oh, by the way, what's your name? I'm Ivana, she says to introduce herself. Izuku gulps a bit before saying, I'm Izuku. I'm a bit new to chaotic and a few friends were showing me around. But I guess transporting drops you in random places at times. And I've never been to somewhere this incredible. And mumble. The green-haired teen starts rambling and mumbling to himself. Keeping him so distracted that he missed his scanner and Ivana had to pick him up to realize he missed it. Sorry. Izuku said with a blush before picking up his scanner. Ivana had a bit of a laugh but she didn't make a big deal about it. I have to go back on patrol. But it was nice to meet you. Ivana says before turning to leave. Before she does though, Izuku stops her and asks if he could get a scan of her. Go right ahead. I'm sure I can aid you well in battle. Ivana says as Izuku holds up his scanner to get her codes. Once it was done, he thanked her before she bounded off to meet with her patrolling team. When she was gone, Tom called Izuku and asked where he was. I'm in the marketplace or bazaar area. I just met a really cool creature with some impressive stats. Izuku says before getting a map to where the older teens were. When they ask who it was, Izuku just tells them he'll show them when he got there. And there was the arsenal of Kiru City. So, who did you find to scan already? Kaz asks while they walk to the entrance. Izuku pulls up his scanner and show him Ivana's card. Whoa. It's kind of rare to see her. And she's got some good stats and magicians in this one. That'll be a big help during a match. Kaz says while adjusting his glasses. Izuku smiles and said he was just a little lucky. Well, maybe your luck will still hold strong, Izuku. But let me do the talking for this first part. Tom says before knocking on the front door to the arsenal. A four-armed beaver beast opens the doors and gives Tom a happy hello. Hey Alkiex. Just showing a new player and friend around the city. Any chance we could scan some gear if we help out here? Tom asks with a smile. The big fellow hums a bit before saying, if you don't mind moving a few crates, I think I can show you some stuff you could scan. Izuku is surprised at this but follows along with his elders in chaotic. And soon regrets it as he has to help in lugging a few muck-covered Vlarik shards and other gear to a cart to be cleaned. After they were done though, Alkiex shows them some gear that could do them some good. Tom finally gets an aerodrone scan that Bodil had been jipping him on. Kaz meanwhile picks up a scan of an ice cloak. And Izuku picked up some new versions of the gauntlets of might. Hey, something's different with these. A courage boost? Oh yeah. We were testing a few other pieces to improve gear. Bodil thought mixing parts from a dragon pulse could do some good. It mostly worked. Alkiex says while acknowledging that the gauntlets lost a bit of power due to the reforging process. Tom though sees this as a big help. Even with a little deficit, boosting both courage and power is a big deal. Have you done it with any others? Alkiex nods but notes those were the only ones that were usable. The others had fallen apart or ended up as a different type of gear. Lucky. So, what's next, Tom? Izuku says with a smile. The older teen returns the smile and says they'll check out the music library next. There'll be some cool music for you to scan and boost your deck. Izuku nods as they head for the building. There Izuku sees a lot of cool different musics. Some from different tribes as well. Hey Izuku. Check this out. Kaz says before showing Izuku a prelude of protection music. This is a great defensive music. Perfect against a player who love elemental attacks. Izuku hums before scanning the music and sees what Kaz was talking about. I think I'll keep this one. So, what's next? Izuku asks with some excitement. The two chuckle a bit before saying they'll head back to the port court so Izuku can save his scans. A scanner can only hold one of each scannable at a time. Tom then suggests that Izuku scans the location as well. Never hurts to have a few copies if needed. Once Izuku does, they port back and Izuku locks in his newest scans. They then head for the Riverlands. Once there, Izuku took a new scan of the location. We're going to visit someone kind of special. At least for this location. Tom says while walking along the riverbanks. The players eventually come upon a purple one-eyed creature attacking a fish-like creature with tentacles. Slither back behind the doors of the deep mines Marillion. Riptide, the one-eyed creature shouts before blasting the Marillion with water. Tom pulls Izuku to the side to take cover from any other attacks. And when Izuku asks if they should do something, Kaz warns him not to jump in. Marillions are some of the worst creatures. There aren't many that won't try to take you out. Tom mentions that they had tried to invade and conquer all of Param at one point. But thanks to the efforts of all the tribes, they had been pushed back behind the doors of the deep mines. The purple creature grunts after being blasted back by an attack. And that is when Izuku's legs start moving for him. He runs over and picks up a rock that distracts the Marillion. He gulps as the fish monster flies toward him with its eyes glowing. Thanks for the distraction. Now take this. Melody of the Meek, the purple creature says before unleashing his magician to empower the generic music. After it plays, the Marillion seems weaker. Evidenced by a hailstorm attack that fizzled out before reaching Izuku. The smile of the creature grew as he fired off a steam rage attack to knock the Marillion into the river. And it is quickly washed downstream. Thanks for the help, new friend. What's your name? The creature asks and Izuku introduces himself. I'm Relem. I'm the caretaker of this location. Even though the Marillions did take me over for a time. Just so they could pollute it. Relem says with a measure of sadness in his eye. Tom and Kaz run out and congratulate both of them. Izuku for his courage and Relem for beating the Marillion. Tom then notes this was who he wanted Izuku to meet. Aside from his skills as a caretaker, I thought Relem might have some advice or battle gear you could use. Tom says with a gesture to the large creature. Who hums before saying he might have a few things Izuku could use. I'd say his courage deserves a bit of reward. Relem says before escorting them to his cavern home. There he shows Izuku a strain of Tide music and his favorite battle gear. The Riverlands star. Izuku happily scans both of these before asking to scan Relem as well. Do as wish, young friend, he says before holding his hands wide. Once the scan is done, Izuku thanks the caretaker creature before they all transport back to lock in the scans. Okay. Last location. The Forest of Life. This is gonna require a bit more sneaking though, so get ready. Tom says with a nod. Izuku returns it and they port to the forest in question. With Izuku amazed by the size and beauty of the plants all around him. Izuku takes a scan of the location before they started walking to a massive nest atop a tree. A creature is flying around a bit before it landed at the nest. We won't be introducing you to that creature. He's not exactly a friend. Tom says before gesturing to hide in some bushes. He did advise Izuku to scan the creature though. And when he does, Izuku finds out the name of the creature was Dractyl. Ha! Not a lot of courage, but he's pretty fast. And he's got decent power. Izuku analyzes before asking if they were going to find anyone else. Not right now. Instead, well, let's just say Kaz has something he wants from up there. Tom says with a raised eyebrow to his best friend. The bespectacled teen nods before climbing up the tree to collect a few of Dractyl's scales. Once Kaz had gotten what he needed, they ported back and Izuku saved in his new scans. Kaz then pointed out that they'd be heading to Underworld City next. Got your scan ready? Izuku nods and they port to the capital of the Underworld. Once they all meet up, Kaz takes them to meet up with Hearing. Hey Kazi. Oh. You brought me some Dractyl scales, the little green creature says with some excitement. Kaz hands the bag of scales over and he starts snacking on them. Making Izuku's face turn the same color as his hair. Seriously? He eats those? Tom shrugs and agrees that it is really gross. But Hearing has been reliable when it comes to music, gear or creatures. Kaz introduced Izuku to the creature and asked if he knew of some good things for Izuku to scan. I could introduce him to Zeald. He'd be a really good one to add. Not to mention Omer has some new gear he's been working on. But in the meantime, Hearing goes back into his house and brings out an underworld music. It called Consuming Cacophony. It does some serious damage, especially if you know fire attacks. But it does take 2 magicians to use. Izuku thinks a bit on it before scanning the music. I can think of ways it could be really useful. So, who's Zeald? Izuku says before hearing shows them around the city. Eventually going to a scrapyard and finding the creature munching on some junk. Izuku looks at him a bit funny before shrugging and scanning the defensive creature. He looked over the stats and could see the advantage of the creature as well as his flexibility to be a battle gear. After they port back to save the scans, the group heads to Iron Pillar so Izuku can get a scan of the very useful location. As well as learning about the story of how the pillar was changed. So the reason it looks kind of funny is because Ulmer went too mad scientist and made crazy giant robots? Izuku asked with an incredulous look on his face. Hearing just shrugged and said, yeah pretty much. Oh. Looks like you might get another good underworlder. Overseeing the reinforcing of Iron Pillar with the yellow four-armed gear maker Kaibon was a capable lieutenant of the Underworld. Hey. She looks a lot like Ivena. Izuku says with some confusion. Only to get a power pulse shot his way. The blue-skinned red-haired woman glared at him before walking up to the group. Hearing. Showing some chaotic players around again, she says while glaring down at Izuku. He gulps as the scout explains what was going on. So I take it you've met my sister. If that's the case, scan me as well. My name's Nevena. And I'll be the better warrior in the long run. Nevena says before putting her fists on her hips with a stern frown. Izuku gulped before agreeing and scanning the creature. With that done, he scanned the location before wondering if there were other things he could scan. Here. This could be useful. Nevena says before holding up a Song of Treachery music. With that, Hearing had an idea on where they could go to get some good battle gear scans. A quick couple of ports and they teens were at Ulmer's castle. Okay, we have to be very careful here. I don't want to get chased by Ulmer again. Hearing says as they sneak into the castle. Once inside they hear the cackling of the crazy underworlder. They sneak around a bit and see the mad inventor working on some piece of gear. It's an aspect amplifier. It boosts a creature's wisdom, courage, or speed. Kez explains as they see the inventor adjusting the gear. Once he was done, they sneak over so Izuku can scan the device. Tom and Kez meanwhile scan a few other pieces. Namely a new vial driver and a nexus fuse. But as they were scanning, Izuku looked around and knocked over some vials. Which domino effect crashed to setting a big portion of the castle on fire. Wow. Even Kez didn't do something like that when he came here to scan the vial driver. Hearing says while brushing himself off after they got out. While Ulmer was freaking out and screaming about his home and lab being on fire. Izuku let out an uncomfortable chuckle before asking what was next. After they went back to save the scans, Kez showed Izuku to Everrain. This location is cool because it's right below Lake Kenaipa. And it is great for countering Earth specialists and hitting back with some strong water attacks. Kez explains as they look around to find any creatures. And they happen upon one of the strangest ones in the underworld, Borthmajar. They see the two working together to stop a landslip that could affect a different area of the underworld. Tom advises Izuku to scan them quickly but the boy looks at him with some confusion. Wait, I can't scan them both. I can only scan one at a time. Izuku says while looking between the two older teens. Kez pats Izuku on the shoulder and tells him to just do it and he'll see what happens. When Izuku does, he is shocked to realize that he had scanned both of them. How is that possible? Izuku exclaims while looking at the scan. Tom chuckles a bit before explaining the story. And how Izuku should use the two in a match. Yeah, don't try to separate them. It just ends badly. Found that out the hard way. Kaz says. With the scan quests done, the three port back and Izuku takes a bit of time to test out his newly acquired items. Eventually putting them to use in a 3-on-3 matches in the Imther and Hotek dromes. Though the latter he lost when he tried to use his newly acquired underworlders. Maybe it's because I don't know how they think. Izuku questions after the loss. Kaz notes that it may have been an influence. Some players can swap between tribes, but others have issues with it. Maybe Kaz can give you some pointers. Sarah notes before she went for her own match. Izuku shows us to think on it later as he wanted to head home since his other self was probably done with school and homework. So he transported back to bring up the other Izuku's moral after another tough day. Once back, Izuku was happy and felt better. Though for once the day he had wasn't that bad. It was just another day at school. But Izuku took some time to look over his new scans and thinking about the adventures he went on with his friends. I wish there was some way I could use what I've learned or gained in chaotic to become a hero. Then I could show a lot of people. Let alone getting to feel that rush all the time. Izuku thought as he stopped on his Maxer card. The green-haired boy sighed before setting his scanner down to get some sleep. Unbeknownst to him though, as he was closing it a spark traveled along his body from the device. And that spark would light the way to something new. Izuku hummed on an off day from school while looking over his scanner and his various cards. 5 types of cards, but only 4 are used in the dromes. We choose creatures to fight as, equip them with gear to make them stronger or give them new attributes. Cast music in a pinch, and locations can cause certain effects as well. The green-haired teen let out a tense breath while thinking about how much of a hero just one creature could be. Or a catastrophic villain. Some of these musics could leave devastating effects if you aren't careful. Izuku thought aloud while looking at the cards for the Canon of Casualty and Melody of Malady. He shook his head a bit before transporting his code to Chaotic. It was time for a new scan quest. Yo Izzy. Good to see you little bro. Peyton called out when he saw Izuku. Izuku smiled and waved back at Peyton. The older teen claps Izuku on the shoulder before telling him that they could meet up with Sarah at the trade tables. She's just making a trade with a friend of ours. Peyton said before catching a robot to ask for some sodas. The one Sarah was trading with was a teen about their same age with bright blonde hair and pink eyes. She was wearing a pale pink top with light purple pants. And a strange silver belt around her waist. So, Sarah. My Rothar forceful negotiator, a jade pillar scan, and a new vial driver. For a Valash, sting blade, and ODU bat hacks. Sarah hums for a bit before asking for a falsetto music instead of the vial driver. The other girl hums a bit before agreeing and making the trade. Hey Peyton. Hey Izuku. You ready for your next scan quest? Sarah asks once the trade was complete. Izuku nods before asking who the other girl was. She smiles before saying, I'm Gisela. I've known these guys for a while now. We met after I bumped into my troublesome sister. Gisela says before looking down with a bit of sadness. Izuku asks what was wrong and Gisela tried to cover it up. Namely by saying she was going on her own scan quest. Once she leaves Izuku panics and wonders if she said something to upset her. It's not you or what you said. She was just thinking about her sister. And the trouble she got herself into. Izuku looked at Sarah funny before asking what she meant. Gisela's sister Christella was a longtime player and bully here in Chaotic. One of the worst with her friend, Clay. Scammed a lot of players, cheated in a few matches, and pulled some messed up stuff in Param. Peyton says with a shake of his head. Sarah elaborates that they had done something extra dangerous to the whole of Param and could have caused dangerous ripples to Chaotic with one of their last stunts. They tried to help a dangerous underworlder travel to the past to take it over. After this and the location was destroyed, the Codemasters decided to pass some judgment on them. Which I helped to deal with and bring evidence forward about. It had been a long time coming, the recently arrived Tom said with a slightly sour look on his face. The 2 older teens nodded while Izuku asked what happened. They were expelled from Chaotic. They can never port here again and can never go to Param. It's the main way Codemasters can pass any judgment. Izuku was a bit surprised but then he was curious on if others had been given similar punishments. Yeah. Simon and his destructive dudes. They stole a bunch of sonic charges from the overworld and used them to blow up ultra-rare locations just so they could sell them off to players. Peyton explained. Sarah then clapped her hands before saying, "Enough doom and gloom. Peyton. We have a set of scan quests to plan for Izuku here. Why don't we go over a few of the locations?" Peyton shook his head before agreeing and saying they should get a table. "Hey, where's Kaz?" Izuku asked as they sat down, and Peyton ordered some food. Tom pointed to one of the screens and they could see he was in a match presently. If he wins this next one, that'll be 7 wins in the Churl Drome. Then he'll probably have a Codemaster match. Izuku looked at him funny before asking what that was. "It's nothing you need to worry about yet, Izuku. You haven't gotten enough wins and matches under you to warrant a Codemaster match," Sarah says before pointing out Mount Pillar for one of the locations they'd be going to. As well as the reservoir and the nest of the ancients. Luckily, Elder Alexia still likes me and would probably be willing to let us scan a few things. Sarah says with a slightly smug tone. Peyton chuckles a bit before pointing out a few of the Mipedian regions he wanted to take Izuku to. You don't have a scan of the oasis, but you do have one of the Kashir drift lands. With some extra water taken along we should get there with less issue. But you've also got a scan of Raupa Sok. We'll go there and then head to the Catacombs of the Conjurers. Peyton seemed extra excited about what he could see and Izuku might find during the quest. Izuku was a bit unsure but he trusted in the elder chaotic players and looked over some of the location details. Before saying he'd like to go to the Danian regions first. Sarah's smile widens and she tells the 2 boys to get ready. Next stop, Mount Pillar, she proclaims as the 2 boys follow her to the transport center. Tom waves and tells Izuku good luck with the quest. But his smile falls as he sees someone else arriving to his table. "Hello, Major Tom. Mind if I sit?" the person asks in an amicable tone. Tom gestures that his was fine and the slightly older man sits. He has brown hair and eyes, and he's wearing a navy turtleneck with gray pants. "I'm guessing you want to know if I've made a decision right, code dash." The man clears his throat before asking Tom to call him Curtis. "I'm not in my drome or wearing my mask after all. But yes. A few of us have been wondering if you would be willing to accept." Curtis says with a smile before asking a robot for a coffee. Tom looks down at his scanner and over a few of his cards. Including the ones he's won from Codemasters and earned on the special scan quests to the locations related to their teams. He sighs before saying he still wasn't sure. "I'm just not sure if I'm right for what you are asking." Curtis nods before saying, "All right. We can discuss it another day. But I am glad to see you helping that young player. He seemed a bit down when he first arrived." With that he finishes his coffee and tells Tom that he'll be in touch. With Izuku, they had just arrived outside of Mount Pillar and Izuku was already intimidated by the guards at the gate. "So how do we get in?" Izuku asks before Sarah sneaks over to the wall. She pulls out a piece of paper before pushing some stones in sequence. And a tunnel opens below her. "I guess that's how. Last one there is a rotten Ikyud." Peyton shouts before jumping in. Izuku squawks a bit before saying "no fair," and jumping in too. After they slid for a while, they came out at a deeper section of the hive. And a big red beetle was waiting for them. "Hey Wama. Thanks for the details on the way in," Sarah said after getting up. She introduced Izuku to her Danian Mandiblor friend and they started to a few sections of Mount Pillar. Starting with the armory. "Look, no funny business guys. Sneaking you around here is tricky enough. Just scan a piece of gear and let's get out," Wama says while checking around. Izuku thinks for a bit before scanning a sting blade for the speed reduction powers. They sneak around for a bit before finding Lore talking with Nam the Servant of Earth. Izuku was attempting to get a scan of one of them, but he ended up tripping and rolling toward Muge and Elementalist. Both Danians were shocked and prepared earth attacks. But stopped when they saw it was just a scared chaotic player. Another one? Wama. Get your sorry thorax out here. Lore demanded. The big beetle gulped before grabbing Sarah and Peyton as well. If I'm going to be in trouble, I might as well bring you all out, he claimed when Sarah gave him a look. Lore had an angry look on his face at seeing Sarah and the boys. He looks down a bit furious before letting out some mandible clicks that sound like a sigh. How many times have you shown this human around or given her new gear? You are supposed to be protecting the flame gate. Look, Lore sir, it's just well the green-haired kid is new and all and he doesn't know much about Danians. So, I thought I'd show him around a bit and let him get some scans of some good gear. You know. Show him some of what makes Danians great. Wama's little speech doesn't ease Lore's annoyance. If anything, it seems to increase his frustration and annoyance. But it is Nam who suggests that he could stand to relax a bit. I've heard from Sylve about this game of theirs. It intrigues me a bit and I wonder if their matches could be good for the tribes as well. The Servant of Earth notes that the chaotic players could test out gear and music that they were unsure about. Including finding out the effects. This doesn't fully placate Lore, but he can see some wisdom to it. Alright. If the boy is willing to test out a music, I'd be willing to let him scan me. Izuku is a bit surprised but thanks the high muge of the Danians and scan him. As well as getting a scan of an intense polyphony music. It's a tricky one that seems to work with our hive. But it takes 2 magicians to use. And at other times it takes 1. I'd like to find out why this is. The green-haired teen nods before saying he'd find out what he could and thanking the muge. The group then tells Lore they were headed to the reservoir after they save his scans. In hopes that he might be willing to help or ease up on the worries going to that section of Mount Pillar. But he just shook his head and told them they would be on their own. I can't win Hall. Let's head back and save these to our decks. Peyton says before porting first. The other 2 follow suit and save the scans they got. Once that was done, they ported to a different area of Mount Pillar. And Sarah took over to get them to the Mount Pillar reservoir. Down there, they saw Takinom directing a few mandibulars to maintain the flues. Hey, I've been wondering this, but what are mandibulars? Like how do they play into the strategies of chaotic? Izuku questions as they were sneaking to get a good scan. Sarah stops before realizing that she hadn't covered that. Right, okay. So you normally set up teams with a few mandibulars up front. The special hive abilities of many Danians require mandibulars. The more you have, the stronger your teams can be. Peyton notes that they also need battlemasters to make them stronger too. He brings up a scan of ODU bat hacks to show how most of the battlemasters differ from mandibulars. Squad leaders are ones you put in the second row. And battlemasters go to the back row. That way you can make the most out of them and their hive abilities. Peyton explains as they get close enough to scan Takinom. Izuku gets the scan plus 1 of the reservoir before he tries to sneak closer to get a scan of his torn Crinth. While he does get the scan, he also falls into one of the pools of the reservoir. And then gets pulled along the current to one of the pipes. As he's screaming and freaking out, Peyton and Sarah both yell to Izuku to port out. And while the boy wants to do that, he can't as his scanner got washed away a bit as he was pulled in. He tries to catch his breath and find his scanner but he struggles to do both. He is finally saved thanks to a net that was strung in one of the pipes. With not just him but his scanner being caught as well. He gets pulled up and is looking at the face of Takinom and a few Danian guards. Chaotic players. Always getting themselves into trouble, the Danian says with an annoyed sigh. Peyton and Sarah run up and ask if Izuku was okay. Only to realize that they were currently surrounded by Danians. Oh. Yuh. Think we can still port out? Peyton asks as while the guards point their staves at the teens. Luckily, they were saved by Wama appearing and telling Takinom that they had a bit of an okay from Lore. Besides they'll probably be gone for quite a while. Why don't we just send them on their way? Wama suggests with a shrug. The water element specializing Danian seems suspicious, but he agrees. It's not like we can keep locking up humans all the time. Get him out of the net. Takinom says to the guards and he tells Wama to SCRT them out. And he happily does. Well, that could have gone better. Yeah, but at least Izuku's okay. Too bad I can't get a music while we were down there, the chaotic players say amongst themselves. But that is when Wama surprises them by pulling out a few musics. Take your pick. These are a few good Danian musics I could sneak out of the vaults. The teens all thank him before scanning the hexagons. Izuku gets an elemental elegy, Sarah scans a symphony of similarity, and Peyton grabs a swarm song music. Thanks, Wama. Don't worry. I'll bring you some maps from the Under and Overworlds tomorrow. Sarah says before they all port back to Chaotic. Once back, Izuku was surprised that he was already dry. Definitely one of the best parts as Chaotic players. We don't take the wet or muck with us when we port back to Chaotic. Peyton says before locking in the new scans. Now it's time for the last location. The nest of the ancestors. Let me do the talking. Sarah says as they port to a section of the underworld near the nest. When they arrived the teens saw the Danians fighting off a group of underworlders. What's going on? Izuku asked as they took cover. Peyton explained that the Danians built the Noah in an unoccupied area of the underworld, but the underworlders didn't really appreciate it. I've heard they've been attacking this place pretty consistently since the nest was built. After a few minutes, the underworlders pulled back. With the commander threatening to come again and kick them out of the underworld. With that done, the teens sneaked down to try and get in to see if there was something good to scan. Only to get caught right away by some of the guards. And the current defense general, Nimei. Wait. Before you lock us up, please tell Elder Alexia that Sarah was hoping to see her. Sarah said in a panic. The Danian detain them, but they are released a bit later to be escorted to the former queen of the Danian tribe. It is good to see you, young one. Ah. You have a new friend with you. I take it you are here for some scans, the massive insect woman says with a raised eyebrow. Izuku gulps before saying he was still new to Chaotic and the creatures of Param. But the way the Danians fight and protect their home seems really interesting. I was hoping to learn more. This seems to impress the queen and she is willing to talk a bit about the Danians and their history. While Izuku is getting a history and power of the Danians, Peyton and Sarah look around at some of audience room. Including spotting a plasma pounder that could do Izuku some good in a Drome match. It looks like it's been modified. Maybe it's got some extra firepower. Peyton says with some excitement. Sarah shrugs before sneaking back to catch the end of Alexia's stories. You seem like quite an attentive young one. As such, I'm willing to let you scan a few items. With the former queen's word given, Peyton pulls Izuku to the side to check out the plasma pounder they found earlier. When he does, he notes that it gives a boost to earth attacks alongside its normal effects. That'll be useful. Aside from that, think I could scan you as well, sir? Izuku asks the large red coat-wearing Danian, Dylas. He hums and seems ready to deny the request. But a look from the elder Danian was enough to let him do it. And when Izuku praises his abilities and statistics, the Danian is flattered enough to let him scan a music he had been working on. It's called Danian Element Coral. When cast, the caster can gain the elemental powers of all those allied nearby. Dylas explains while holding it up to Izuku. The green-haired teen seems excited and scans the music before thanking the Muge. The Muge smiles while the older two chaotic players get their own scans. With Sarah getting a scan of Alexia herself. While Peyton takes a scan of Nimei. With their scanning done, they all thanks the elder Danian and Sarah promises to visit again. And maybe I can provide something to help with the attacks from the Underworlders. The former queen nods and thanks her for the offer and hopes for the best with Izuku and his matches. After some goodbyes they head back to Chaotic to save their scans. Once that was done, they head for the Mipedian oasis. Just wait till you see all the awesome Mipedians there. Not to mention we can get you a really good Torweg. Peyton says while they are walking through the Kashir Driftlands. But not before stopping at a Mipedian watering stone. Their worries were compounded though when Slurk appeared and attacked them. More thieves looking to steal Slurk's water. You won't leave the sands alive, the scorpion-like overworlder proclaimed before firing a power pulse from his tail. The teens kept running and jumping into some areas to trying and get away. Unfortunately, Izuku trips on some rocks and is in position to be struck by the stinger tail of Slurk. And he is saved by a blast of lightning from a new interloper. You'll not hurt these humans, Slurk, a large orange Mipedian with a purple cloak proclaims. But he isn't alone. Beside him was a green Mipedian who was crab-like armor. He seemed to sacrifice some energy before a red light covers him. And then the cloaked Mipedian fires a strong blast at Slurk that sends the scorpion flying. With that attack, Slurk skulks off into the sands. The two Mipedians walk up, and Peyton identifies them. Tian. It's good to see you, dude. And this is Lanker, right? The cloaked Mipedian Tian chuckles before saying it was good to see Peyton as well. The duo escorts the teens the rest of the way to the Mipedian oasis. Once there, Izuku gets a scan of the location and looks around the area before asking to scan Lanker. Your ability seems really useful. I'm sure it would be a great help in battle. Izuku says with a look to the larger Mipedian. He hums a bit before nodding and agreeing to let himself be scanned. Once that was done, Tian offers an armament Adagio Music. It can swap battle gear with an ally. Or swap two enemies' battle gear. Tian explains as Izuku scans the music. With that done, the teens explore around the area but they come upon one of Peyton's oldest Mipedian friends. Seato had picked up his Torweg from being repaired and happy to meet his old friend. And was glad to let Izuku scan it to boost his creatures. With the initial exploration done, the humans thanked the Mipedians and headed back to Chaotic. Okay, so the next place to head to is Raupa Sok. We'll meet some other Mipedians. Namely, well, you'll see when we get there. Peyton says with a chuckle. After porting to the location, Izuku gets a new scan of the location before asking what they were looking for. It doesn't look like there's much out here. Izuku says while taking a drink of water. But that thought is stopped when he sees a massive fortress that starts firing energy blasts at them. Izuku ducks down and prays that they miss them. Only to be surprised when the ball of energy disappear in midair. What just happened? Izuku stammers while shaking from the fear of what should have been coming at them. Peyton laughs a bit before saying it was a mirage. I've seen millions of them in these deserts. But hopefully the guy I'm hoping to meet is still in this area. Indeed, I am here, Peyton, a voice says before a Mipedian appears from nowhere. Izuku is a bit surprised but asks if that was the natural ability they all had. The teens tell him it is, and Peyton introduces Fivarth. A conjurer. At Fivarth's camp, Izuku is told the story of the conjurers and what they are to the tribe. Wow. So, conjurers were once destructive. But they became the great heroes of the whole tribe. Izuku summarized after hearing the story. Fivarth smiled at him before asking if he wanted to scan him or a warbeast. You should go with a warbeast, little buddy. I'm planning to show you to the catacombs of the conjurers. Got a good one in mind? Peyton says before giving the conjurer some space. Fivarth hums for a moment before raising his hands high and calling on the mass of musical energies. In the field he created, a massive purple fox is seen with shining blue markings and eyes. Izuku is wide-eyed at the sight of the creature. But an elbow from Sarah snapped him out of it and he quickly scanned the warbeast. With that done, Fivarth led up the musical forces. Aside from that, I have a music here that might be quite useful. It's called the Song of Shelter. It can protect a creature from music or abilities. I can imagine that would be quite useful in a battle. Fivarth says before holding the music up for Izuku. With that done, Izuku thanks the conjurer as they head back to Chaotic. Once there, Peyton advises that Izuku should use battle gear that boosts energy on war beasts. They've got a lot of power, but their recklessness can really hurt you. Found that out the hard way. Izuku takes that advice before wondering what the catacombs of the conjurers were like. And how are we supposed to get there? Izuku asked after saving the scans. Peyton told him that they had to head back to Raopa Shack. Once they returned to ocean with no water, Peyton took them towards some mountains to find the tunnels and caverns that would lead to the catacombs. After they reached the range, the whole group looked around to find what they were looking for. Hey! Is this the tunnel? Izuku asked after they had been searching a while. Peyton checked the area over before confirming it was the right cavern. We've still got to walk though. There is a reason the conjurers hide away after all. Sarah and Yusuke nodded before shining the lights from their scanners. They walked for half an hour before Peyton could definitively say they were in the right area. As the architecture changed, Izuku and Sarah could see some of what the conjurers had built for themselves underground. The group was surprised though when a large blast of fire surged toward them. They all ducked and hid as best they could before the attackers showed themselves. That being Drome and HanBaron. What possible reason could you have to intrude on our grounds? Drome asks while charging up an attack. Peyton steps out nervously before saying, "We're not here to hurt you or anything. We're just hoping to get some scans." The conjurer looks at the teens with some suspicion before dismissing HanBaron. He keeps his eye on them and asks why they wanted to learn or gain. Peyton asks Izuku to come closer and show him the war beast he scanned. Drome eyed the creature before nodding and saying, "I see." Glossed. Well, I could be quite helpful in this situation. But I guess you also want the benefits of the catacombs too, right? Izuku nodded before saying that the conjurers were the great heroes of the Mipedian tribe. Like some of the first heroes of my world. They used their powers to try and help whoever they could. No matter if some didn't want them to. At Izuku calling him a hero, Drome coughed and seemed to blush a bit before thanking him. "Perhaps I can let you scan me and a few other things." Izuku thanked the conjurer, and the chaotic players followed him to get a scan of the location. Once that was done, Izuku asked to scan Drome and he let the boy do that as well as showing his favorite battle gear. The Ravita flower. Aside from that, I think you could make use of him of teleportation. Drome says before offering the music to Izuku. With that done, Izuku thanks the Mipedian with a shake of his hands. And they head back to Chaotic once more. After saving the scans and locations, Peyton said it was time Izuku learned something else. "Meet me in the Tyrosus Drome in about 10 minutes. Time for a lesson." Peyton says with a smile directed Izuku's way. The green-haired teen is a bit confused, but he agrees. "I hope you're ready for what's to come, Izuku. 'Cause this could be rough." Sarah says before saying he was on his own to make his strategy. Izuku nods before looking over his cards. Thinking over a strategy to face Peyton. Now that I think about it, I've never faced these guys in the dromes. Izuku thinks while considering the cards he should use. Once he had an idea, he went to the orange and red battle drome with some nervousness. Inside, Peyton was ready and waiting for the younger teen. "Okay. We'll keep it simple and just do a one-on-one battle. So, pick your creatures, gear, and locations. I'm gonna do something a bit fun," Peyton says with a smirk. Izuku is about to ask when he sees Peyton spinning the card rings really quickly. And when they stopped, he would take the creature, music, and gear it stopped on. Izuku couldn't see the reason behind this, so he shook his head to try and build the best team to fight him. While he was tempted to use Maxer, he decided instead to use Ivena. A little something new to maybe throw him off. Especially with the gear and music I picked up. Izuku thought before equipping her with the new gauntlets of might to her. He then chose the strain of Tide music for a just-in-case scenario. With that done, the two lock their teams and get ready for the battle. Izuku's Ivena vs Payton's Milk. Since Izuku was the one challenged, he was the one to spin the location randomizer. He sighed a bit before spinning. And the location chosen was Skeleton Springs. The two players touched their screens and transformed into the creatures. "Hope you're ready to get chaotic, Izuku," Payton exclaimed before the field shifted to the location. Kaz and Tom met up with Sarah at the port court to watch the match. "Think Izuku has a chance?" Tom asks as they order a pizza. Sarah laughs a bit before saying, "Yeah. About like you did when you first played him." Tom winces a bit and lets out a dry chuckle. Once the field opened up to Skeleton Springs, Izuku looked around to get his bearings. He leapt from large sets of bones to another. But he was surprised by the skull he was standing on was launched into the air. He landed roughly into a different set of bones. Izuku shook his head before looking around to find Milk. Only barely noticing the flash of a power pulse shot his way. He leapt out of the way before firing a flash kick off to one side. A grunt is heard as Milk is now visible and shaking his head. "Not bad, Izuku. You guess pretty well on where I would be. But don't think you can predict everything." "Rock wave." Payton called out and unleashed the earth attack. Izuku leapt to the side and put on his gauntlets to boost his attack. He then fires off Power Punch to deal some heavy damage. Milk gets hit hard from that, but he counters back with a Airzolt and then Cyclone Slam. The two trade a few more attacks before Payton decides to use his music. Disarming theme. Remove Ivena's gear. Milk calls out and Ivena lost her gauntlets of might. Izuku let out a curse before dodging a new attack from Payton. Izuku unleashed a delirium attack and make Milk go a bit crazy. He starts firing off a few random blasts and destroying the area, causing damage to himself and Ivena. "Okay. That didn't go the way I thought it would," Izuku says after shaking off a hurricane. After the delirium attack faded, Milk realized that both of them were probably on their last legs. Good thinking with that delirium attack. It worked really well given the difference in wisdom we have. But I don't think you can take much more. Inferno Gust. Izuku took a hit from that before firing a power pulse and getting some space. He shakes his head before using the strain of Tide to heal himself. Or herself. That is still one of the weirdest things. Turning into your opposite gender. Depends on your perspective, dude. Izuku hears before getting blasted again. He then gets hit by a thunder shout. With Izuku getting a counterattack with Velocitrap. You shouldn't stay in the same place after using music. It can tell someone exactly where you are. Thanks for the advice. Valor Continuum. Ivena shouts to fire off a courage-filled roar. It knocks Milk back and he then tries to run from Ivena. Izuku thinks he's got his chance to finish the fight, chasing him throughout the location. Izuku looks around with some unease as he isn't sure where the next attack is coming from. He then takes a hit from a fire attack to his side. The thing that was strange though, was that Izuku knew it was a purely fire attack. Not one like Inferno Gust. When Ivena tries to stand, Milk hits her with a petrifying power and stops her in place. I was sure you'd try to be a bit more predictable, but you threw me off without me having to teach you to be unexpected. I've learned to try and take whatever I can. Don't forget where I'm from. And what I have to run from on a daily basis. If a hero or person is too predictable, then the villain will win. Just the reality. And don't think I'm going to make this easy for you. With Izuku's declaration, he tries to break out of the petrification. But Payton doesn't give him a chance and uses a slow sand attack to slow Ivena down. And then a cyclone slam to stack up some damage. Especially when he used an earth pulse and then a flame orb from his pyroblaster, reducing Ivena into a mass of code. The winner, Paytonic Master, the Drome MSTR announces as they return to normal. Good match. At first I wanted to talk and teach you a bit about being predictable. But you could figure out how to do that on your own. Hayden says before holding his fist up to bump it with Izuku. And the green teen returns it and thanks Peyton for the good match. They met with the other teens and enjoyed the pizza before heading back home. Once home, Izuku smiled at the adventures he had and new things he had seen. Too bad I can't use these scans here. That could make for some great adventures on their own. Izuku thought aloud before looking at some of his scans. He worked on his homework and then got ready for bed. But not without one last look at his cards. The last one being a frantic scan he got on a solo quest. As he put his scanner down, the spark from before lit up again. And traveled along Izuku's arm. Not that he noticed. At least not right away. So alright folks, that's all for today. Stay tuned for part 2. Do subscribe, like and share for more such videos. Also check out the story and author HanBaron on FANFICTIONnet. Press the bell icon to be notified first on release. See you in the next video. Till then, goodbye.